Dumelang, welcome to Face the Nation. My name is Clement Manyatela. Great to have you with us here on SABC News. On the show tonight, what consequences does EFF leader Julius Malema's fiery comments last night have on the party as it heads to its elective conference? He came out guns blazing against his former deputy Floyd Shivambu, going as far as launching an attack on leaders in the EFF who appear to be sympathetic towards Shivambu. Dali Mpofu speaks to us tonight. Also on the show, what is the ANC's plan to stabilize metros in Gauteng? The Johannesburg mayor is out, the ANC is back in charge. There are movements in Tshwane that may lead to the mayor there also being pushed out. Gauteng ANC chair and Premier Panyaza Lesufi will speak to us tonight. He'll also talk to us about some of his employment initiatives. And then later, government wants to procure 2,500 megawatt of nuclear power. The last time, former President Jacob Zuma wanted to push the nuclear program through, even though it was clear government couldn't afford it. So can government afford it this time around? Also, seeing that the president has now signed into law the electricity regulation bill, how will that impact on the price of electricity? And when? Electricity Minister Dr. Kgosientsho Ramokgopa is also on Face the Nation tonight. But first, my comment. So, many of us watched last night's address by EFF leader Julius Malema. Some were surprised by his insinuations about Floyd Shivambu's departure from the EFF, especially given how the matter was initially managed last week. But in some corners, this was no surprise. You could argue that this was vintage Malema that we saw last night. But something clearly changed between last week and last night, because last week he was cordial with Floyd Shivambu as he announced that he is leaving the party, and there seemed to be an agreement of sorts that they wouldn't go for personal attacks against each other. Do you remember that?
I stand before you to accept the decision of the Deputy President of the EFF, who has voluntarily resigned his positions and did not renew his membership. When he sent me a letter yesterday, I felt the same pain when I received the news of the passing away of my mother. Because Floyd, to me, is not just a comrade, he's a brother. And he will remain a brother even when he pursues his political career differently. We formed this organization together, and I've told him that resigning from the EFF is equal to resigning from himself, because this is his organization. The constitution of the EFF does not allow people to resign and join other political parties and come back to the party. But I've made this offer to Floyd, that the day you decide to come back, you are more than welcome, because you are not a member, you are a founder of this political party. So you are not our enemy, will never be your enemies, will continue to engage on different political and personal issues.
So that's what Julius Malema said last week. Floyd Shivambu also seemed to be on the same page.
My sincere plea is that in its reflection of the decision that I have taken, the organization should also avoid mischaracterization of an otherwise revolutionary and disciplined decision to not renew membership of the EFF, and the request that I must be released from all areas that I'm deployed on behalf of the EFF. And then say that we have, over the years, played an important role in shaping the politics of South Africa and the continent, the African continent. We have all played our parts progressively, and I have no doubt that we will continue to do so in our respective different responsibilities.
So all of that happened last week. But then last night, Malema went guns blazing, effectively coming short of accusing Shivambu of betraying him and the EFF for personal gains.
To betray this movement for personal reasons constitute an attack on our movement. Comrades, it is this section of the EFF Constitution that obligates all of us to speak out in private and in public and declare where we stand when the attack of abandoning this movement confronts us.
He even went further to announce that anything that resembles his former deputy will be dismantled.
The GTU shall fall under the office of the President, and all powers that belong to the Deputy President will go into the office of the President. And everything else that looks like the former Deputy President shall be dismantled in the EFF and then gotten rid of with immediate effect. The GTU and all those who served in the GTU under the Deputy President are dissolved. You want to deploy anyone into the government on behalf of the EFF, you shall report to the office of the President. We are taking charge of our organization now. We are tired of entrusting in the hands of wrong people. We have been betrayed for too long. We have been sold out for too long. We have been trusting for too long. We need to take it into our hands and run it ourselves.
And he didn't stop there. He also took a swap at some leaders in the EFF that he believes are quiet on the issue when it comes to what the movement requires. And he says this is a moment that requires them to speak out, and some of them have just been silent.
If there are those amongst us who are to be ashamed to declare where they stand as we defend our movement, I'm willing to give you a simple task and go and look at what those closest to them are saying and how they are behaving. A leader of the EFF who is well known in the EFF, who is very popular in social media, on television, radio and everywhere else. The EFF gets under attack. These leaders do not say anything, but because they don't know where they stand. But there is a practical way to find out where they stand. Just go and look at where their parents stand. Look at where their relatives stand. Look at where their spouses stand. You will know that those closest to them are speaking on their behalf because they whispered into their ears.
All right, that's just context of what happened last night. And I think it's pretty clear who Julius Malema was referring to there, isn't it? It's also clear to me that the shots he fired yesterday towards some within the party have probably everything to do with the upcoming elective conference. He probably wanted those who are likely to challenge his preferred candidates for some positions to know that he's ready for a fight, or maybe to threaten them against standing for those positions, or maybe he's just daring them to bring it on. But the question is, will those people continue with their plans to challenge some positions in the EFF? Right? Will people like Dr. Kgosientsho, for instance, go to conference and contest a leadership position? And what will that mean for the relationship that they have with Julius Malema? Remember what happened to Mandisa Mashego when she stood for the Secretary General position at the 2019 elective conference? Where is she now? So it's clear, at least to me, that Julius Malema has people that he prefers for some positions, which is not unique, by the way, in politics. I mean, often in politics, leaders have their preferred candidates. But it's clear that some in the EFF have their own preference that may contradict Julius Malema's preferences. I mean, there are people already calling on Dr. Ndlozi to rise up and contest the deputy president position. But Julius Malema was telling the ground forces yesterday to be careful of people who want to be supported for leadership when actually they are quiet during a crucial time in the movement. So I think the race for the EFF elective conference is officially on. And judging by what Malema said yesterday, it's going to be a brutal one. One that might weaken the organization or maybe strengthen it. But it looks like it's going to be a bumpy road. Either some leaders in the EFF are going to be brave enough and contest positions, whether or not Malema prefers them to, or they're going to retreat, or maybe even decide to leave the organization. So what is it going to be? We're going to have to wait and see. The next couple of months are going to be really, really interesting. The question we're asking you tonight, though, is what do you make of how Julius Malema addressed Floyd Shivambu's departure from the EFF yesterday? What consequences do you think this will have on the party? Or do you think it was good that he got to be honest about how he really feels about how things have transpired? Please send us a WhatsApp voice note now on 078-459-1897. Remember to tell us your name and your surname, and also where you are sending that voice note from. Alternatively, you can send us an act on @FaceTheNation SABC. All right, so we start this conversation with... So we speak now with Dali Mpofu, who was the first chairperson, in fact, of the Economic Freedom Fighters. And by the way, there's a farewell dinner that is currently underway for their current Chief Justice, that is Raymond Zondo. It's currently taking place. There are a number of people that have been speaking at that gathering. So SABC News is keeping track on that. You'll be finding out more about what would have transpired there on Late Edition, but we're keeping a close eye for when the Chief Justice also begins speaking. But let's continue in studio with Advocate Dali Mpofu. Thank you so much for making time for us.
Good evening. Good to be here as always.
Yes, and what you were asking me earlier, what the listeners maybe didn't hear, is that all of this was happening while I was away.
Yes, I suspect you had something to do with it.
But trust me, even when I was far away, I was glued on my laptop watching the briefing live. Yes. I want to begin in the beginning, Advocate. Maybe let's start there. Were you surprised by Floyd Shivambu's decision last week to say, I'm leaving the organization?
Yeah, surprised is an understatement. Shocked. I think that the organization was generally shocked. You know, I was saying to someone today that, you know, an organization is like a person. It has feelings, yeah. It can be happy, it can be sad, and I think generally we were all shocked and sad last week. And what really happened was that this was obviously unexpected, and it hit us hard, particularly at that level. But much as an organization is like a person, but it also is an organization of many people. Yeah. And so we can't be, you know, wiping our tears for months and months on end. The show must go on. And that was really what most people don't understand, for example, with what the EFF president was saying last week, and what was saying when he was addressing us as the ground forces.
Yeah, help us understand that. Yeah. What was he trying to say? Because last week the suggestion was, we're not going to be going into personal attacks. We respect the decision. He can go. We're going to focus on the movement. But last night he was quite aggrieved. I mean, he went for the jugular.
Yeah, well, this is politics. You know, it's not for the faint-hearted, as I say. So that's why I'm saying I'm speaking here as a ground force from Ward 73, Johannesburg. So when he was addressing us in that capacity, he obviously had to take the mantle of the leader who must give direction. That's a different thing to addressing, you know, a press conference in some air-conditioned place and in our head office. Because now our task is to make sure that the masses of our people in general, but more importantly, our membership is not left in the lurch wondering what's happening. Direction has to be given. We're not like the other organizations that are, you know, in denial. There's another organization that just lost power, and it's still in denial. We have our hearts to our sleeves, and you correctly say we're honest. So when we were sad last week, we were sad. It was not being put up. Yeah. And when we are combative now to say let's rebuild, that is also true. That's when it's not like we're acting. All this is part of the bitter struggle for the liberation of our people. And these things happen, you know, I was saying to the president of the EFF last week, this is what happens. You know, you go, you might have 4 or 5 generals, you go into a war. If one of them falls, you can't just say, oh, well, yeah, you obviously have to pause, you know, give a salute and so on, but the war must go on. Yesterday,
as the war goes on, I suppose why some people find problematic some of the things he said is that there are people, even within the EFF, that are pointing fingers at some of the leaders of the EFF. I mean, Julius Malema spoke of people that are quiet. I'm sure you've seen some people thought he was referring to you.
Well, fortunately for you, you are the only one who knows that you had invited me here even before that speech. No, look, the issue, as I was saying, I mean, where we started, we were all shell-shocked. Maybe some people were even confused. But what is worse is that the membership, I mean, people like me, I'm not a leader of the EFF anymore, but because I'm a former chairperson, people will phone all over the country, what's happening, totally confused and so on. So it was important. I thought that the most brilliant thing was to start the process of addressing the membership and showing the posture of the organization. So the issues about the other issues really, I mean, you know, they'll sort themselves out. The important thing is that we have a political program and we have to consolidate the organization. I think that's a blessing in disguise in a way. Again, this is what I was saying to some of our members and leaders. It's a blessing in disguise. It's never good to have a crisis. But if there was ever a good time to have a crisis, it's a good time because we are 3-4 months away from our national conference. So obviously how we come out of that conference, how we consolidate, and we are also about 18 months or whatever to the local government elections. So those are the most important milestones. It's our conference, it's the local government elections, and 2029. And to do that, you don't have to wait for 2029.
You start right now.
Start yesterday.
We'll talk more about what the plans are. But to be clear, not for a second last night as you were speaking, did you think, is he referring to me? No. Because you didn't say much really on Twitter.
No, I didn't, but no, I never thought that. And I've heard so many theories today about he was referring to this one or this one. But, you know, those are people who probably don't know the CIC. If the CIC wanted to talk about me, and I think he did yesterday, he did. He said this happened.
You are his witness on something.
On something, yes.
Okay. And I mean, one of the things was that you are the one that actually negotiated for Floyd Shivambu to get that pathway into the MK party, given your already existing relationship with the former president, Jacob Zuma. How do you respond to an assertion like that?
No, we don't have to respond to that. I mean, you know, I've never, one of the things I've seen in the last 5 days is so many people who are experts on us. You know, even now I was coming here, someone was saying, you know, no, this is what Julius is thinking. No, this is what this one is thinking. How do they know how we're thinking? So no, I'm not worried about those kinds of things. That's what happens in politics. There'll always be those kinds of rumors. What is crucial is that the organization must position itself within Parliament, outside of Parliament, on the streets of our country, as the alternative to the current crisis that we have been placed in by the so-called GNU. And people must listen to that side of the message as well, where we're saying that we're going to focus like never before on crushing this sell-out GNU deal. But obviously, while we're doing that, we have to deal with our internal issues. Now, for an organization, that's not so difficult. It's not like we have to do one thing. We can do all these things all at the same time.
What impact do you think all of this is going to have on the EFF, especially after what Julius Malema said last night? What impact are you seeing as the organization? I mean, Julius Malema last night said, if you want to leave, leave now. He was also making suggestions about people who are trending on social media, that some within the EFF want to have him, and I'm talking about Dr. Mbuyiseni Ndlozi here, contest the position of Deputy President. And Julius Malema said, be very careful also of people who are propped up also on social media. What impact does this have, especially ahead of the elected conference later this year?
Okay, well, I didn't hear him saying anything about Dr. Mbuyiseni Ndlozi, but the impact that it's going to have on the EFF depends on us. As I say, we can sit and weep for the next 3 months, or we can build our organization and come out stronger from our conference. There's no doubt that this will have an impact on the politics of South Africa. It's not a small story. It's something, as you say, even when you were overseas, you were following it. So, but the question as to whether that impact is going to take us closer or further away from the promised land is in our hands. It's not in the hands necessarily of one person or the president of the EFF or the Secretary General and so on. It's the EFF itself, as it has done since 2013, must decide how it is going to take on the struggle. And my own view is that, as they say, in politics, you must never waste a good crisis. So this might well be an event that's going to rejuvenate and in a way also clarify who's who in the zoo. So if there are people who are half here, half there, they must make up their minds.
Where are you? Are you half here, half there? Are you in the party?
No, we are all here. But also people expect us. You see, an organization, a political organization like this is a voluntary organization. So if you come and join the EFF, we don't have an interview and say, why are you joining Clement? So when you leave, we're also not going to have an interview. It's a voluntary association. It's a democratic country. You do what you like. But the most crucial question is what you're asking. What is then the impact on the organization? And we must make sure that we arrest that, and we must make sure that our membership is ready for the real war, which is against the enemies.
To be clear, you are going to be part of that war. You're not going anywhere. You're still very much part of the EFF.
Well, I'm not just part of the EFF. As the president was saying, the EFF is us. It's something that we have built from nothing. It's not something that you just wake up one day and walk away.
Which is why Julius Malema feels so betrayed by Floyd Shivambu. I mean, even yesterday he said, even last week he said, this is someone who helped co-found this organization.
Absolutely.
Do you see it in your view as a betrayal when you look at someone like Floyd who helped build this organization, as you say, from nothing? Do you see it as a betrayal? Because Julius Malema last night says this is someone who's gone for his own political gains.
Well, you know what, the relationship particularly between those two is well known. I mean, I represented them in 2012 in the ANC disciplinary hearing. And even then, coming from the Youth League, and as he said last week, it was not just a friendship, it was a brotherhood. So it's almost like, as he said, losing somebody who's close to you, or a divorce, or some other loss of that sort. So those kinds of losses either go with a lot of sadness, which is something we felt, or a feeling of betrayal.
Is that how you feel?
In the sense, well, to the extent that we were not taken into the confidence, I do feel that way. I feel that, and by the way, there's something strange where I've changed about how I feel about it, because last week I was of the view that maybe what the former Deputy President should have done is wait until the conference, address all of us and explain himself. But over the weekend I thought about it and I think I was wrong. He was right to do, the minute he felt that he was no longer with us, he took the right decision to then go.
But he didn't explain why, because even Julius last night says, I asked him, what did I do? No,
he did explain. He didn't, of course, he didn't say, when you're saying that, you are assuming that the problem was with the president of the EFF. He explained it in his letter. He said it's a revolutionary act. But so that's what he explained. But you don't expect us to go to our members and say, oh yeah, we're coming here to talk to you about the Revolutionary Act. We can't, because this is somebody who is now part of the opposition or the competition, so to speak. We're going to have an election in about 2 years' time. We can't be handing out roses to those people that we're going to be contesting against fiercely. As the competition and as opposition, not necessarily as enemies, but this is politics. As I said, it's not a small game.
As the ground forces and as someone who was the first national chair of the EFF, how do you feel about the option that Julius Malema made available to Floyd Shivambu last week? He said it's not in the constitution, but as leader of the party, he's giving him the opportunity, should he want to come back, that door will remain open for him. I mean, is that in the constitution of the EFF? And if it's not in the constitution of the EFF, why would Julius Malema unilaterally just decide that's the door that he's going to open? Well,
again, it's not a Julius Malema thing. Remember, as I said, we're going into a conference in a few months' time. All of us are giving all sorts of suggestions. This is the season for that. So if, for example, we decide in our conference to change that clause, this is the time for that. I've made a whole lot of proposals, as I do whenever we're going to have a conference. Some make the day, some fail, some get disappointed.
But he didn't say we're going to discuss this with other members. He said, I am making an exception. That sounds like that's not a collective decision.
Well, I mean, you're talking in a press conference. It's not like you're in some doc talking under oath. I'm saying organizationally, the only way that he can achieve that is that you will take it to the organization. Currently, the organization is run by Central Command team. He might take it there, but as I say, fortunately, we have an NPA where those kinds of changes. And I would think that given forget about the Floyd Shivambu thing, given the seismic changes that have happened in the political landscape this year in particular, we are looking forward to a very vibrant conference. And the other thing, the problem is people assume that there's no debate in the EFF, and then they conclude that that is so. There is fierce debate all the time. That's why he made the example where he said, I was there. And
when other EFF leaders wanted the EFF to join the GNU.
Yes, this is true. It happened just now the other day in Kimberley when we were having our 11th anniversary. As usual, when we were together, we talk politics and we fight, quote unquote.
Was Floyd Shivambu one of those that wanted the EFF?
Yes, he was there. He was there. He was part of that debate.
And Julius Malema last night says their reasoning was that, well, the EFF, the DA is going to pull out at some point. And Julius Malema says, what happens if they don't pull out?
No, that's exactly what happened, actually, to cut it short. It was discussions, and this happens all the time, by the way. 2016, we sat for 7 days and debated and boxed each other before we made a decision as to which way we were going to go. But currently, we had this discussion, and we're looking at all those options. And one of the pertinent questions was that, okay, maybe if we had gone in, the DA would have moved out. But what if we had left? And my position was that when those people were saying, well, then we would have stayed, were wrong. Because I said to them, well, what's the difference between that and Matanzima? Because all those people were they were telling us in the 80s and 70s that they're fighting from within, the sellouts that were there, and therefore there would be no difference between us. But the point I'm really making is that those debates are raging on. It's not like, there was something strange about
All right.
that.
I mean, they're telling me I'm out of time, but just lastly, Advocate, Julius Malema also mentioned that if your branch didn't get a 10% voter share, you won't be allowed to participate in the conference. Is that in the EFF constitution? Has that been discussed even among the ground forces, or is it a decision that he made?
No, that's not how it works. How it works is that when we're going to have a conference, the leadership, remember when we have the previous conference, we basically give the organization to them for the next 5 years. Yeah. So they do the guidelines, they work on the manifestos, they do whatever needs to be done. So the guidelines for the next conference are going to be drafted by that leadership. We can't call a conference so that we can plan for another conference. So that's how it works. So whatever guidelines, they're going to say how many people. For example, they'll decide, are we going to have a conference of 5,000 people or 3,000 people? And that then
But he seems to have decided. Last night he didn't say there's a team that will work on the guy. He said no branch.
Yes, but what that means, Clement, is that the leadership has made that decision. You see, you guys expect that every time we speak, we must give you a long story. When he announces a decision, it means that is a decision that has been taken at the War Council, at the CCT, or by the people who are doing the guidelines. And we will, if we don't like that, we will say it at Nazareth. Okay,
I'm out of time. Zondo, the Chief Justice, there's a farewell dinner. This is someone that you've also interacted with in your professional space. Any words on, as he bows out of office, he's retiring?
Yeah, goodbye. Yes, but apart from that, it's just like what we're discussing. You know, when you leave, I was watching now, there are people who are making speeches, and when somebody like that leaves, some of those people are really sad, but some of them are happy. But
are you sad? Are you happy?
About what? About
him leaving?
No, I'm in between, but I'm happy about the fact that we're going to have some fresh change in that office and someone who's going to be there for a longer period. But I've known, you know, he was the first person who appointed me as an acting judge back in 2000 when he was at the Labour Court. So from that point of view, he's made his contribution. But it's time to say goodbye.
All right, Advocate, thank you so much for making time for us. All right, that's where we wrap up that conversation. When we come back, we will speak to the Premier of Gauteng, Panyaza Lesufi. Stay with us. Welcome back. So the question we've been asking you tonight on Face Nation is what you make of Julius Malema and how he addressed Floyd Shivambu's departure from the EFF yesterday. Some of the tweets that have come through, Kiro says, Mr. Malema feels betrayed. They shared the same vision, Floyd Shivambu, and I think Juju never thought of a day where he'll split with Floyd. It's only natural to be overtaken by emotions like that, especially considering how much he loved Floyd. He's grieving the loss. Sabelo says, poorly, he was too emotional and bitter, which made him look very weak. And Klapo says, I think this move was a political strategy. It's a move considering the press briefing farewell. It is justified by that. Notorious says he was betrayed by his best friend, his brother from another mother. It is painful to be betrayed by someone you trust. Put yourself in his shoes and think about the person you trust and how you will react if they can betray you one day. But Julius is a fighter. He's strong and powerful. Thank you so much for some of those WhatsApp tweets. Those tweets. Now to your WhatsApps. We've asked you to send your WhatsApp voice notes as well, responding to this question. We've asked you about how Julius Malema has handled this matter, particularly from what he had to say last night. Here's what you've had to say.
Good evening, Clemens. My name is Dali Mpofu from Gqeberha. I think Julius didn't deal with this thing nicely last night, like he did when the news came out during the press conference. We expect them to show maturity and focus on the growing of their organization. They need to accept that Floyd and the others have left the EFF. Theirs is to build the EFF. Dali Mpofu from Gqeberha. Thank you very much.
Good evening. It was a very emotional speech by Julius Malema. I think he did not expect it. And truth be told, it's a great loss for the EFF. But I'm happy that they are saying they are moving on. Yes, it's a great loss. Tebogo Ditlhale, Nelspruit, Mpumalanga province.
Thank you very much for your WhatsApps. Let's move to this now. Gauteng ANC Chairperson Panyaza Lesufi says the party must adapt or face being wiped out. In the province, the ANC received about 34% of the votes and is thus compelled to form coalitions with other political parties. The party is also seeking to oust the DA in Tshwane. Lesufi says the ANC is in discussions with the national leadership to obtain approval to regain control of the mayoral office in the city of Tshwane. Panyaza Lesufi joins us in studio now. Premier, thank you so much for speaking to us this evening. No, Ragona. Yes, I did. I told her I bring greetings from Africa.
And the skin.
Yeah. Let's start, Premier, with I want you to put on your ANC chairperson hat first, and then we'll talk about some of the employment initiatives. I'm sure as the PC you must have discussed the political dynamics in the EFF, Floyd's departure from the party. What are your reflections as the ANC in Gauteng on that?
Thank you so much for the invite. Indeed, we discussed it extensively, but the final resolution was that we must not get easily excited by these developments because we are ourselves going through the same process. We should concentrate on the process where we have some members of the ANC that has left to join MK party, and that process has not been finalized, and therefore we are going through the same process. But the second thing which is very, very important is to reaffirm our generational mix policy as the African National Congress, that in all our leadership position, you need to have all the generations, because if you have one-dimensional or one generation, when people differ, this is the price that you pay, because you don't have the ability to source the elders, or you don't have the ability to source other people that can come and intervene and resolve our differences. Thirdly, which is very, very important, that it's clear that the African National Congress needs to remain firm, strong, so that it can continue to represent our people. Yeah. And that's the lessons that we have picked up from this debacle. Okay,
let's talk about the stability of metros in Johannesburg. You are back in charge as the ANC in Johannesburg. There have been concerns raised about the previous mayor, Kabelo Kwamanda, and I know you were one person who was leading discussions at the time that led to him ascending to that position. Do you regret that, given how he showed up to the job over the last year or so?
Surely not. And I think we need to thank him for accepting that he was holding the seat for the ANC. There's never been that dispute. What happened is that in 2021, we lost 3 metros as the ANC, and we occupied our opposition benches. We didn't want to be mayors. We didn't want to be part of coalition discussions because all political parties that were voted in didn't want to work with us. But when they came, we said to those political parties, the optics don't look good. We're not voted, we're not supported to be mayors, so we can't take the position of being a mayor. Amongst you as political parties that you want to partner with us, select somebody amongst yourselves, because we presented a person that has 2 masters, Dada Morero, to be our candidate. And what did voters do? They didn't vote for him. So we took our opposition benches and we said, the optics does not look good when the voters said they don't want you, then you want to come. And it's only now when the same political party said, we tried everything. We really believe the leadership of the ANC is needed. We really believe somebody within the ANC, if he comes, to lead. Yeah. And we felt that let's respond to that request. Hence that we have elected Dada Morero to be the mayor. And I want to thank him and thank 80%, almost 100% of the political parties, because it's only 2 political parties that didn't support his candidature. A demonstration that we treat other political parties well, that our negotiating capabilities are brilliant as well.
Do you believe, though, that he was competent and up to the task?
Well, that is up to the voters to determine. Normally, you leave that aspect to voters. There are formations that have already raised their grievances, but there are also other political parties that have accepted that he indeed stabilized that municipality. It might not be ideal, but I don't want to speak on his behalf. We have a new mayor from the African National Congress, and we've got our own monitoring and evaluation tool that will determine whether he's doing well or not.
Action SA wants to put Nobuhle Mthembu for the position of Speaker in Johannesburg. Are you happy with that as the ANC? Is that deal almost done?
Our approach is very simple. We must not get excited about position. If you are going to join the party of other political parties that were there, you present your candidature, and those political parties will be in a position to say we agree or not. Indeed, Action SA has presented a candidate, And we are in the process, therefore, of consolidating with all our other political parties so that that particular candidate, if we support, we can be in a position to support. But we want to welcome Action SA to the fold. It took a lot of work, and it's a demonstration of our experience as a province, because Action SA is only working with us in Gauteng only. It's not working with any other political party outside Gauteng, affirming our ability to persuade and also affirming our ability to listen to other political parties. So if that's the candidate that they've presented, we will take that process forward as the African National Congress, together with our partners of government of local unity.
What about Tshwane? What's the plan there? Will you still put a motion of no confidence in Mayor Brink?
We are still waiting for our national leadership to give us guidance. Contrary to popular belief, everything that we do, we consult our national leadership. There is a subcommittee of the ANC that deals with coalition talks. We have already presented a sense to them. We are waiting them to give us guidance. As soon as they give us guidance, we'll be in a position to have discussion. Correctly as well, the Democratic Alliance have sent a correspondency to us, want to engage with us, believing that they can establish the government there with us. We are also subjecting that to our internal processes. Other political parties have already indicated that they want to table a motion of no confidence. But where we are, our approach is not to rush, and our approach is also not to sabotage service delivery. Our approach is to engage each and every party, like we did in Johannesburg. It took us almost 2 months to conclude this process in Johannesburg, because we want to bring every political party on board. It must not be which political party has knocked first at the door of the ANC. It must be about service delivery, strengthening governance structures, but most importantly, ensuring that we pull together as political parties so that we work for the interest of our people.
All right. If you can please put your premiership hat now and let's talk about Nasi Spani.
Yeah.
What's happening there? Are there contracts that have been terminated? Because there are some concerns that have been raised by some people who were appointed as interim or part-time teachers.
Let me give background to this particular issue. What happened is that in 2020, national government appointed young people across the country. In Gauteng, there were 35,000. There were various thousands across the country as part of the COVID mitigation effects, so that they can assist teachers with additional work. Remember, at that time, the learners were coming, shifts, system was utilized, and many other things. So, unfortunately, in 2023, the contracts were terminated by the national government because it's an annual contract that needs to be terminated. So we assumed that because an annual contract, it will kick in the next a day or the next year. So we then said, instead of saying to these young people, go home, we will step in, carry them until when that annual period kicks in, then they can continue. But when that annual period was not kicking in, and we're sending correspondence to say, what's the future of this program? And it was not very clear. That's where we felt that we can't just carry it perpetually. Our intervention was for that year, but now that is going beyond year, it will be very difficult because it was not budgeted for. But we are happy that UIF sent correspondence to us 2 weeks ago that they are reactivating that program, which simply means that there will be an opportunity to be looked at. It's just that I don't know the new recruitment format will be to bring them back or recruit new people, but we are hopeful that those young people will be looked after. And I've apologized openly during the State of the Province address that we're closing a gap. But unfortunately, to close that particular gap created expectations. But on top of that, it led to people losing
Is there synergy there with the national government? Because some of those young people felt you made commitments to us and now you've just left us hanging.
No, we made commitments that until national pronounce on the matter will carry you. That national has made a pronouncement. We are hopeful that they will be sorted out. But as I said, it's us that knew the pain of unemployment. It's us that knew the importance of recruiting young people. We've given them skills. They're not living empty-handed. And we are creating more opportunities at various levels. So hopefully we've got their database now with us. Where opportunities arises, we'll be in a position to give them opportunities so that they can continue with their careers. But we regret that, unfortunately, we could not carry them beyond the allocated time.
How many are we talking here? Over
32,000 of the
132.
Of the 132,000, indeed, it's a lot of people, but we had 130,000 that we still have within the system. But as I said, National UIF has written us a letter that there is an opportunity to review the program, and that's what we are waiting for. for them to indicate if this program will continue or not. And we'll persuade that their recruitment strategy must take into consideration these young people that were part of this program.
What about other programs? Are they impacted? I mean, I know you probably have seen the DA saying you're making irresponsible promises to the public. They even want the public protector to be involved.
Well, they're playing politics. I mean, when we announced that we'll intervene on these young people, they said it's not possible. Now that we've intervened, they want to go to the public protector. We have filled 2 stadiums, FNB Stadium and Ellis Park Stadium, with young people that were staying at home unemployed. Today they're employed. And today they're part of programs of government. Those are programs that we budgeted for. Unfortunately, the 32,000, it was not our program. Those that are still part of our programs, they're still there, except 1 year a program, because the impact is not the way we wanted. You can't keep things for the sake of keeping them. There must be an impact to deal with the issues. So it's that program of Green Armies that we felt that it needs to be repackaged and reworked. But all other programs of wardens and neighborhood watch, youth development, and other programs are still intact, and we really believe that we should continue with them.
Gauteng Premier Panyaza Lesufi, thanks for speaking to us.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
I appreciate it very much.
Thank you. We'll be back after the break. Welcome back. Now, Energy and Electricity Minister Dr. Kgosientsho Ramokgopa has withdrawn an earlier government gazette for the procurement of 2,500 megawatts of nuclear energy generation. This after Earthlife Africa and the South African Faith Community and Environment Institute interdicted the process, arguing that there was insufficient public participation in the process. The Minister joins us in studio now. Thank you so much for making time for us, Minister. Welcome to the show.
Well, good evening, Clement, and evening to the viewers at home. Thanks for the invite.
So there was a plan for the country to procure, 2,500 megawatt of nuclear power that paves the way for government to open the bidding round for nuclear energy. You have since put that on hold. How was this process mishandled?
Well, first is that my relationship with the South African people is that we have to be transparent in how we are resolving the energy challenge in the country, starting with load shedding, and now we're creating conditions for energy sovereignty. And as you'll know that the nuclear bill program has got a checkered past, so it was soiled in controversy, allegations of corruption. And one of my stated intentions was that every step of the way will carry the country with us and ensure that there's a degree of transparency. Of course, the process followed its natural process as stipulated in law. There was a public participation process when the erstwhile DMRE asked for concurrence from the regulator that is independent. The regulator came back and said, fine, you'll get this concurrence, provided that you address the following 3 areas, what we call suspensive conditions. And then the DMRE then responded, put a paper together on how they are going to meet those suspensive conditions, provided NERSA with that information. Unfortunately, what NERSA did was not to go back to the public to say, this is the response we got from DMRE. Do you have any issues about this? And what NERSA did was to offer that concurrence. And then the gazette was issued. Remember, it's an independent process from the minister. Yeah. When we went before the court, that's the only opportunity you got to learn that the NERSA had not followed that process. And by its own admission, it's a misstep. So in order to ensure that the process is not mired in any controversy, pull back, allow the process to unfold. Yeah. And once we answer the question, pace and scale that we can afford, we share that with the public. If there's concurrence, then run the procurement process.
What's the plan then? When are you planning to reopen the process for another round of public participation?
Well, that public participation is not conducted by the ministry, it's conducted by NERSA. Yeah. But what we'll do is to update the information, give it back to NERSA, so that it's an arm's length relationship, allow NERSA as an independent authority to do that engagement. And once they've satisfied themselves, they'll come back with an answer, whether in the affirmative or negative. Affirmative will say we're happy, continue with the procurement process, and then we'll release a procurement framework and get to a point where you get to procure.
I know we're still in the beginning stages, but are we going to have money for this? I mean, the last time, as you said, it was mired in controversy. The last time the former President Jacob Zuma wanted to push this through, even when government couldn't afford it. Can we afford it now?
Well, that's the public participation process that was answering that question. So in answering that question, there are two issues. So it's three issues. It's the scale, what is the size of the megawatts, is the pace, over how long are you going to roll it out, and whether we can afford that. So we'll revise what the assumptions are, underlying assumptions, and also in the context of innovation that has evolved, and we know that is becoming a bit more affordable. Remember that the biggest issue with nuclear is the upfront capital cost associated with that. But when it comes to the operational cost, very competitive, clean, more efficient, and in fact cheaper compared to other fuel sources. We'll answer those questions, but we want NERSA to subject those answers to a public process, so that there's a general level of satisfaction that indeed there's nothing that is being hidden in this process.
Yeah, I mean, the DA is putting the price tag at around 400 billion rand. Do you have estimations, understanding well that there's still a public participation process where the public will also get to comment on it, and NERSA will work on the costings? But as government, have you made some estimations?
Well, I'm putting a team of experts who will do all of that modeling. So I will not rely on numbers that are being thumbsucked by other parties. Allow the process to unfold to the extent that you are able to contest what some of those assumptions are, and of course the final figures or projected figures. Then you are allowed to make that submission. So allow that process to unfold, and then we'll come back to the country. And of course we must also answer the question, the opportunities cost. What is the cost of not going that route? So we'll answer all of that question. But the comfort I want to give to the South African people is that whatever decision we are taking will ensure that we are not transferring the burden of this financing to the end consumer. As you can imagine, electricity has increased 600% in the last 14 years or so. It's an untenable situation. So it's important that we find fuel sources that are cheaper, that do not provide an extra burden on the end consumer.
And speaking on the price of electricity and the unaffordability, the president has now finally signed the electricity regulation bill, and a lot of South Africans are asking what impact will that have on the price of electricity, and when can they start feeling that impact? Well,
the major intervention is that it introduces, if you like, independent players on the generation side. So it creates a platform for, if you like, competition on the generation side. What we know about the competition is that now you have eliminated the monopoly that was Eskom, so you have de-risked energy generation, but with the additional players in that space, you are going to achieve a number of things. The first one is that there's going to be elevated levels of investments because we have opened up, liberalized that space. The second one is that for these players to be competitive, they must offer the best price to the end consumer. So they are likely going to invest heavily in research and development to ensure that whatever energy source they use is efficient, and of course they are able to compete price-wise. And then over an extended period of time, there's going to be a benefit. The net benefit to the consumer is that the reliable energy supply, multiplicity of sources, and secondly that is likely going to be more affordable than it is the case now, because now you are talking of a monopoly, and of course you are going to account for some of the inefficiencies in that. So once there's transparency, I think you are likely going to ensure that electricity is significantly cheaper. It won't come immediately, of course.
What are the
I think over a
though?
passage of course, it's a function of the appetite of new generation players, but we have already created that dispensations through public procurement of renewable sources from private sector players. But what this does is that you don't rely on PPAs from public sector, primarily Eskom. It could be independent parties in the space that are providing electricity generating and also the off-taker. And in that way, you have democratized the space. More players in the space is becoming ultra-competitive. And then, of course, as the market forces will have it, the prices are likely going to come down.
Are you concerned at all about the possibility of this bill, well, which is now law, being taken to court? I mean, SALGA had raised some issues around its constitutionality.
Yeah, I think there are significant issues that SALGA is raising, I mean, and that endangers, if you like, the financial sustainability of municipalities. I'll allow that process to unfold. they've made a point that they want to engage with the president. Okay. Let's allow that to unfold. We have been engaging with Salga, the president, Stofile, and the executive, just to try and find each other. I'm confident that ultimately we'll find a more enduring and acceptable solution. But we really don't want to have unintended consequences where you collapse, if you like, the revenue base of municipalities.
But is still room for negotiation when the president?
Well, no, it's been signed. It's been signed. Of course, the other avenue is to go through the courts and get that to be ventilated there. But the point I'm making is that even if you follow that passage, there's still room for that engagement, and we'll find the best way of how we address the genuine concerns of local government.
All right, and just as we wrap up, Minister, what's the country's energy outlook? What update can you give us?
On the 26th of August, ESCOM will release the summer outlook, but I must say it looks positive, exceptionally well. I think the team has outdone themselves. I'm really chuffed about the kind of progress they've made, starting from the board, the group executive, Mr. Marokana was at Kendal today. I mean, for the first time, the EAF is at 82% after about 6 years of underperformance. So it really talks to the totality of the efforts that everyone at ESCOM has brought to the resolution of this problem. I'm confident that as we enter the summer period, and we're expecting an additional 2,500 megawatts of new generation capacity from Milipi Unit 4, Kgosientsho Unit 6, and Kubek Unit number 2. Confident about the outlook.
All right, Dr. Kgosientsho Ramokgopa, thank you so much for making time for us. And thanks to you for watching the Tuesday edition of Face the Nation. We'll be back with you on Thursday at 8 p.m. Now, Chief Justice Raymond Zondo will be speaking at his farewell dinner in a couple of minutes' time. Remember, Zondo will be retiring after his 12-year non-renewable term ends this month. He was appointed Chief Justice by President Cyril Ramaphosa effectively from the 1st of April 2022, following the retirement of Chief Justice Mogoeng. Up next, though, is Late Edition. Stay with us.